At some point, patterns stop being abstract. They stop being something you notice later and become something that quietly demands attention. Not because they prove anything, but because they repeat in ways that no longer feel random. This was the point where investigators stopped looking only at the past and began watching the present. Even after the cases were reviewed together, there was still no direct evidence of a crime. No confession. No forensic breakthrough. No single detail that could reopen a case on its own. On paper, the explanations still held. But investigators were left with something difficult to define. Not proof, but a growing sense that the same explanations kept returning. And when traditional methods reach their limits, attention shifts from facts to behavior. Undercover investigations are rare. They are costly, time-consuming, and ethically complex. They are not designed to extract confessions. They are used to observe patterns. In this case, investigators weren't trying to confront Evelyn. They were trying to understand how she spoke about the deaths, what details she returned to, what context she chose to include, and what she left out. The goal was simple: to listen. Laura entered Evelyn's life without raising suspicion. Not as an authority figure, not as someone asking questions, just as a friend, someone who shared time, someone who listened without reacting, someone who didn't challenge the stories being told. Over time, conversations became more open. Evelyn spoke about the past more freely. Not directly and not all at once. But certain themes began to surface repeatedly. Medication, dosages, timing. Not as admissions, but as explanations. Details that seemed to circle the same events from different angles. In undercover work, it's rarely a single statement that matters. It's how stories evolve, how the same events are described differently over time, how responsibility is framed, how outcomes are explained. Laura wasn't collecting evidence. She was observing consistency. And slowly, a pattern began to form, not of what happened in one moment, but of how those moments were remembered. Undercover operations always raise difficult questions. At what point does observation influence behavior? Where does listening end and manipulation begin? These are not theoretical concerns. They are questions investigators are required to confront before proceeding. In this case, the decision to continue was based on one consideration: that leaving the pattern unexplored carried greater risk than examining it carefully. Once that decision was made, there was no turning back. Undercover work rarely delivers clarity on its own. It doesn't resolve cases overnight. It doesn't provide definitive answers. What it does is shift perspective. It changes how past events are understood and what questions are now considered reasonable to ask. In the final chapter, we look at what happened when these observations were tested against physical evidence and how the story finally entered a courtroom.